Are you ready to run your short-term rental business like a superhost? If so, look no further than Guesty for Hosts. Guesty for Hosts offers listing management for all three major OTAs, Airbnb, Booking.com, and VRBO. With Guesty for Hosts, you can create a branded direct booking website in minutes. I've been able to hit 61% direct bookings in my business and automate daily tasks such as communication with cleaners and communication with guests. Click the link in the show notes to get an additional $20 off your first month.
Welcome to Live, Let, Thrive, a podcast about the Airbnb life, the share economy, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Micah and Steve.
Hello.
And welcome back to another exciting episode
Of Live,
Let
Thrive. What is up, Micah, man?
I am good on this beautiful Thursday. How you doing?
It is a beautiful Thursday. I'm doing pretty good, man. This week was my daughter's first day of school, so that's always a big thing.
Congrats.
And yeah. So I'm of course in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, don't believe everything they're teaching you. They're trying to make you a little eight hour a day employee, you know. So you gotta, I gotta reinforce, you know, the entrepreneur spirit in her. But it's going good, man. She likes it, and so that's what we've been up to this week. And so Fridays mean, you know, it's doubly good because you know I'm off of work after Friday, and then she's off of school after Friday. So it's like a double whammy. Anyways, we have a great show today, in episode 219 of your favorite Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, all that short-term, mid-term, long-term podcast in the world, coming at you from Fort Worth and Arlington. We have a special guest, Micah, man.
Who we got on today for 219?
For episode 219, humming along, we'll be at 300 soon. Mike Denman. Denman, who's that? Boom.
Who is that?
Besides the greatest Fu Manchu we've had on the show.
Compliments.
Mike Denman is an award-winning filmmaker based out of Colorado who has worked on marketing and advertising for video games since 2011 and real estate since 2015. He's been at the forefront of technological advancements in connecting people to content through the internet via apps like Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and many others to mention. Too many others to mention. Adapting his real estate advertising tactics to encourage higher amounts of web traffic to short-term rental listings was possible due to his years of iterating on the process. He has been a real estate investor for 4 years. Welcome to the show, Mike Denman.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. So is that considered a Fu Manchu, or what is that considered?
You know, I don't even know. I just so I like started growing facial hair when I quit drinking alcohol like 8 years ago, and all of a sudden my facial hair started growing. I mean, like I was in my 30s and I had nothing. I was like able to, you know, grow nothing. It was crazy. But then ultimately when it came in, I was like, this is kind of like pirate facial hair. It's just kind of going like this. It's a little weird. I really don't go anything on the side. So it's like, it's a little crazy. But no, I call it just a handlebar, you know, a little quick handlebar.
A little Raleigh fingers going on.
Little thing. I found out my grandfather had a little curled mustache too. I was like, that's cool. I was like, it's totally runs in the family. Right on.
Did he own a mustachery?
You know, no, he wasn't. He was a firefighter. So
there you go.
a little different, but it's still like one of those badass kind of mustache wearing dudes, right?
Nice, man. So welcome to the show. And so how did you get your start in the short-term rental world?
You know, short-term rentals has been a really interesting, fun world. And man, I love all the community and all the people involved in it because it seems like everyone's so giving and all this knowledge is shared. There's just killer stuff. So actually, I stumbled into it because my partner, she's like, mostly the real estate that she's invested in has been long-term rentals. And we've done the whole thing where you like, you know, do the primary move, still keep that primary as like, you know, what you then rent out, and then you move on to the next primary. So we've been doing that for a few years. And that's basically how we started a lot of the real estate investments. And then we started going into like, actually in this past December, November, we were like changing everything to sell 2 of our properties in Colorado, move all those 1031 exchange it into some short-term rentals and see how we can make those things work a little bit better. Because for cash flow, we were really like $300 a month or $400 a month in cash flow from like, I think we had 3 properties. And so it was like all in Colorado. It was really challenging. We had a lot of overhead, a lot of taxing time. We were self-managing. So I was like, I'm going to go over and do the handyman thing. I'm going to go like, you know, paint the walls when they leave. So it was a lot of those little small things. And then Patricia was like, my spouse, she's basically listening to Bigger Pockets, heard about Avery Carl's book and read into the short-term shop and all those things with short-term rentals. And then she's like, wait a minute, this is a total world that we should be part of. Cause I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, let's do that. Fine. And I didn't really pay too much attention to it. She found some amazing properties. She got a really cool beach house in Crystal Beach, Texas, that she bought through the short-term shop. That was a really cool experience. And the people who had owned it previously, it was just a vacation home for them. So it had never been trafficked as an actual vacation rental. They just like had it for like whenever they brought their kids to the beach, and then their grandkids would be there too. So it was like a cool thing. Then we also, with the Joshua Tree thing, we ended up, so Tony Robbins, Tony Robbins, the real estate Robinsons, okay? So Tony and Sarah, the hosts of the Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast, Tony, he had Instagram that they were flipping a house in Joshua Tree. And then it was one of those things that looked really cool. I think it was like their third or second flip or something like that. And Patricia was on their Instagram. She's like, sold. And then she actually went and bought it. So there was like this whole funny thing where we're like, hey, got your house you flipped. This is pretty cool. But then we kind of had like closings and all those things in January. And then like, I think I really started getting into short-term rentals when we went out there to actually set some of them up. And then February happened. We launched on Airbnb, our first place, which was the Crystal Beach place. And it was like, okay, cool. We got our first bookings for that 20% spike. It was really cool. We're like, all right, great. And then like nothing for 3 or 2 weeks, really. It was solid 2 weeks of just no real inquiries or traffic. And so she's freaking out, right? So the whole short-term rental thing is like, you have a new mortgage that you just got, the whole kind of level of investment that is like, okay, I have to be able to, pay for that mortgage and have this all work in. What's really happening? Then I was like, oh, don't worry. It's like, I'll just run some ads. And it was just like nonchalant about it. She's like, don't tell me to not worry. It's like, it's a mortgage. Tell me it's serious stuff. Don't tell me not to worry. And so I was, it's all funny because she was like really, really upset by it. I was like, it's okay. Give me like $100 in 10 days and I'll see if we can make some changes. And I took like $100 budget, took 10 days. And I was like, okay, I'm going to iterate on a real quick ad. And I basically, because I've been dealing with real estate for so long, I was like, I know that there's so many restrictions for real estate advertising on Facebook, Meta, and all those different places that you have to really know some of the ins and outs of the policies. And so luckily I was like, oh, cool. I'm just going to click all these policy buttons as if it's all real estate anyways. And then boom, ad traffic, boom, flow of people. And then really what I ended up discovering is that when Airbnb first launches a listing, they shoot like 6,000 people to it in the first month. It's like an enormous amount of people. So statistically speaking, you're about to get some exposure and you actually get some leads, right? So what I'm doing through advertising is on a daily basis, I probably show my ads to 1,000 people a day, maybe 1,500 at most. I spend $10 a day. And I usually end up seeing maybe enough bookings to wow me after like a few even minutes of the ads running. Like my favorite thing was over the course of testing all the ads out is I ran one set of ads and I had gotten to spend $2.43 before I got my first booking from that ad run. I was like, sweet, I spent $2.43 and ad worked. The booking was for like 6 days or something crazy. It was like $5,000. And I was like, this is like one of the craziest little combinations. I was like, I just spent $2.43 and I just got like a bunch of grand, right? So ultimately the equation really, when I think about it, it's like, I feel great spending $300 a month advertising on like Meta and Facebook. And ultimately I tried Instagram for a little while, didn't find my demographic on there, but I just restrict my targeting to a certain geographic area around the short-term rental. I then splatter a bunch of things out there. I do a bunch of tests. I test out my images. I test out the things that I say in the listing, the actual like descriptions and all the text elements. And then I have an ad run. And then what people click on makes me then determine what things I keep and what things I move around. And so I then see which ad images work really well. I change those ad images to being the more prominent ones on my Airbnb listing. There's a lot of little nuances with just the data that you can get from advertising. So like I really just started diving into, as like a data nerd, just like all the different variables that go into what make people click on things, what makes them want to book a vacation. And we all know that there's a lot of variables, and whether or not someone's going to be able to book is like, is their calendar matching up with your listing, property, sleep numbers, all of this stuff, right? So it's like, there's just so many variables. It's hard to have that kind of like dialogue really, where it's like, okay, how do you get this? But you just throw a bunch of people at it. through ads, and statistically, like law of averages, out of maybe all of that, 10% will probably click on my ad. And out of that 10%, like 2% will probably book. And so if you send ads to like 100,000 people, have 10,000 people click on them, there's a lot of people that will end up making those wish lists or sharing it or liking it on my social media or sending around to their family. And they don't necessarily result in the book, but they result in someone talking about my property and talking about going there as a vacation. And so like, these are all like little wins for me. And so it's like, you just throw a bunch of people at it, and eventually someone's going to find it that's really interested in it, and it's going to match with their calendar and their like, family setup. And then boom, you get bookings. Now seasons change and all those things adapt, but I've been doing a lot of ads for a lot of other people now too. It's been a really interesting role. Like in, I think May, when Airbnb did an update, is when I really started like noticing that everyone across the board had that freak out moment like Patricia did. And there was like this whole thing. I was like, wait a minute. Oh man, everyone really freaks out right now because their mortgages, and like they're just trusting these like Airbnb and VRBO platforms or Halfie or whatever it is to bring them the bookings. I'm like, you guys just run ads, tell people about it. Just share it. Just share it out.
No, you bring up a bunch of good points. Now, one question I do have, and then this may, and I know this is probably different per market, but this will give like listeners like just a starting point. What have you seen be, because I know you said you were playing with different images. What have you seen be the most effective ad to get a conversion?
This is the weirdest thing. So I was expecting like all these like fancy, beautiful shots inside the house, or, I mean, I don't really know. I was just kind of like, I'm going to throw up a bunch of things. So I threw up some external shots of the house, some views from the porch, like different little things like that. My beach property is like, it's really, really nice property. So like the cool thing is that whenever people go there, they end up having like a stellar review that they leave. And it's like, they're like, the pictures do no justice or something like that. And so I end up taking the reviews that people actually leave as the text element of my ad. And then I take for pictures like the house exterior, the little viewpoint from the porch, and then maybe a bedroom, maybe a bathroom, something showing I have a laundry, something showing I have a couple different amenities, and then not really much else. And then ultimately, the things that people click on the most is the external picture of the house. Like, I mean, hands down, no matter what ad, what area, what thing, even if it's a condo attached to a building and they have like a outside photo of like this parking lot, garage, and then the building, those photos are the ones that get clicked on more than the beds, more than the kitchen, more than anything else.
That's insane, because a lot of people don't even put exterior photos.
And it's like, it's funny because like whenever we think about it, real estate tells me from all my experience with that, it's like people only care about the outside first, and that's what they look at predominantly. And so they're like, okay, if the front door looks bad, they're not even going to go through it, right? And so like if you have an exterior shot that brings someone to your Airbnb or wherever you have your ads pointed to, and so that way when they land on it, they then can explore the interior and figure it out at their own leisure. But that initial impulse to click is driven up by the exterior photo. And it's like, it's weird because one of the exterior photos from my property, like I hate, it's like of the trash cans and the driveway and going up. I'm like, you guys pick this one? It's funny.
Herb appeal, baby.
So basically you can like, because I'm thinking in my head, how can I set this up? So basically you're taking a review and putting it on top of the exterior of the house. So now the person looking at it's like, oh, this glowing review. Then they see the outside of the house. Now they want to book.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
now,
that's been the best thing so far too. It's like that review combo, the exterior of the house, it's been like pretty legit. And then usually it's like 300 miles around the actual area is the geographic targeting that I like to do. But like it's changing with the seasons changing. And so like there's a lot of stuff I'm learning with that. I'm really loving targeting Chicago right now for a lot of things. It's like this weird thing. It's like everyone in Chicago needs a vacation, I feel. So it's like they're actually booking in a lot of places. And so I'm just like, for funsies, I'm like, some of my ad accounts, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to add Chicago into the mix. And then it was like, people like, I'm getting inquiries from Chicago. I'm like, cool, it's working then. Right on.
you know, I'm happy and I was just in your Facebook group and I seen you ask.
Oh yeah.
I was seeing you asking, you were like, hey, do you know where your guests come from? Yeah. And one thing about my Arkansas properties, I know where they all come from. They all come from Texas to do construction work. And so back in the day, I used to run Facebook ads, but I just kind of fell off of it. But I'm going to get back into it. I'm like, I could start basically what you're doing. You're taking the ads and just running them to a city that people are coming from. So I'm going to get to doing that.
I mean, it's a really easy low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Now, are you shooting them to your Airbnb listing?
Yeah. So I don't have a direct booking site right now because I've been just busy, and ultimately I have no patience to figure out some of the nuances right now about like, you know, fees and all that stuff. I'm like, whatever. So really for me, I'm just like, I'm going to use whatever system is in there that most people use. It's like Kleenex, you know, it's like when people think about a vacation home, they're now associating Airbnb to the vacation home. And so it's like, VRBO has been around for like 40 years, like a long time. And it's like, you know, it's like, I still exist. But then, you know, Airbnb is like Oreo. No one knows what the cookie's name was. It was before Oreo. The Oreo is a knockoff of. It's like something with a Z. I don't even know. But it's like, you don't know what it is, right? But so Airbnb is also the place where when people started having like the summer release and they started not showing up on the listing search. Actually, that's really what happened in my property too. I couldn't find my property when I went to search for it on Airbnb. Like no matter the parameters, it's a beachfront, it's ocean views. I couldn't find it in those categories. It was really upsetting. But I mean, like for me, I was like, whatever, because I'm just sending a bunch of ads to the actual location. I didn't really care where people are coming from. But it's a thing, you know?
So right now, my bad. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Just one question. So you have a direct booking site?
So I have an owner res direct booking site that like I haven't really put time, effort, or doing anything into. So I would just consider it that I don't have one.
So what is owner res, real quick?
Owner res is a tool that manages the interconnected platforms that allow you to have multiple different listings on multiple different listing platforms, but then sync them all together, having a main kind of like, this is what the copy is, this is what images are, this is what my calendar is, this is what my rates are. And so you can streamline and match all that across the board through Owner Res, which is like very complicated to set up. But luckily, for like $500, you can have them set it up for you.
Oh, nice.
But it's really cool, and ultimately is one of the solutions that we ended up doing just so we had VRBO and Airbnb on the same calendar platform, and we also manipulate the pricing through price slaps. And so like everything is this like daisy chain of connectivity that ultimately makes it a little easier to manage. You're not having to go into all of those different systems and make each of those pinpoints, because that just takes too long.
Now, do you know your conversion rate right now? Like,
oh yeah, my conversion rate was like 0.24% or something like that on Airbnb for one of my properties. Okay. My property that I'm not running ads on, my conversion rate was like 0.18% or something like that. But that's my Joshua Tree place that, again, we've been remodeling for a little while, and we just got back like last Friday from it, and we're now about to get our final new photos. We've got the mural on the back. There's all this stuff that we did to it. So I'm about to launch. Actually, no, I already did launch ads for that. So I'm already getting bookings like all the way through like Christmas and Thanksgiving and all those different things. So my Joshua Tree ads are doing really well right now. I've gotten like 3 or 4 inquiries in the past few days, and it's only been running for a few days.
Now, with you doing your ads and like you already getting booked out for Christmas, now are you upping like your ad budget and then also upping your nightly price with it?
I do up my nightly price, and I have historically like $174 to $400 more than other properties in my area for like the Crystal Beach one. And actually what I found, this is like, you know, this is a fun thing about sending people from not the actual like platform that they're searching on. So like say some person's on Facebook, they're scrolling through, they see my property, like, oh cool, I'm gonna click on that. They go then to Airbnb. They've not seen another Airbnb listing. They don't know what the other rates are. They have no idea ultimately what they're getting into. But I have reasonable prices that are based on similarities between all of the areas. But we've got beachfront, so I was like, this is a little bit higher of a value. And for some of the weekends, like I priced them really high because I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to have people book those weekends, because sometimes beach parties happen. And so I priced them really high, but yet still got people booking them. So it was like, okay, someone's going to pay $1,200 a night for this. I guess that's happening.
Okay. Now, what's your monthly ad budget?
I spend $300 usually on a month per short-term rental property. At most, I've spent like $400. I think that the sweet spot though is like $300, $350. If you add a little bit of the competition into it. So like if you're in a very high dense area of a lot of short-term rentals, adding like $5 to where you're spending $15 a day basically it landslides the amount of people that you're able to expose your ads to. And so keep in mind that the numbers are like $10 a day is like 1,000 to maybe 1,500 people, maybe. And so it's all based on how much the cost per click costs. And when I run into people, actually, this is an interesting thing too, on costs in general. Like I run into people's ads that they're like, I tried it on my own. I'm like, that's awesome. I have a free like information training tutorial video on YouTube about it. I even published like all the stuff I have like in that Facebook group I built. But it's all because I want to give as many of the hosts the information as possible. If they want to build ads and have success, they should be able to. And it's a very tricky, diligent process. And so the cost per click when people just do it themselves, sometimes it's like 30 cents a click. And I'm like, whoa, this is a lot of money. But for me, I'm like paying on consistent basis between like 6 cents to 14 cents per click. And that's usually because I've optimized them. I've targeted the right people. I've targeted the right areas. And I'm not necessarily targeting like crazy amounts of people at the same time. And so the cost per click thing is very delicate for some cats. And so I think if people are doing ads and they're like, I'm not seeing anything out of it, they just might not have spent enough, or they might not have optimized it to where they spend the right amount to where Facebook makes it an optimal delivery to people that would actually click it.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people do when they try to start putting, paying for ads?
Man, so like the biggest mistake of all is not choosing the special category housing. So when you do an ad run for an Airbnb or a VRBO or anything that has to do with renting a space in a house, you have to, according to Facebook, and I think it was like in 2018, the SEC came down on Facebook for some of the advertising practices and they had to change everything over. And I was doing a lot of real estate at the time. So I was like, well, this is going to be interesting because you used to be able to target people based on how much they made and how much income they had and different little levels of variables that are really nice for targeting for advertising. But when it came to advertising for real estate, it was viewed as a discriminatory practice. And so ultimately, as you can't discriminate and you can't be seen to do that, some people have been able to run ads without it being special category housing. But I've seen their ads run and then their personal Facebook page get shut down for violating the ads. So it's like they end up having some repercussion that is a little bit grander than what just shutting the ads down. The second mistake I see is people including like booze or drink cups, like even wine glasses. So when Facebook is identifying any of the images for violations in their policy, they're actually just like algorithmically looking on the image for shapes. And so if they see like a wine bottle, then ultimately you're in a category of delivering ads to everyone of every age group. To advertise booze, you have to limit it to 21 and up. And so you have this 18 to 21 window that ultimately, because it's a special category and you have to advertise to everybody, you have to make sure there's no illegal, no drinking, no anything like that that could be even construed as that. So I've actually had a couple that have been of my own ad accounts that shut down. It's like, oh, I had wine glasses in that shot and I didn't even see it. And it's like one of my clients had like a margarita bottle. And it was like the first of its kind in terms of ad submission. So it was like a very brand new account, very brand new Facebook page, very brand new ad account. And so it was all this brand new stuff. And then I'm like, oh, submitting this. And then Facebook shut everything down. And then I go through like the appeal process. I've been very diligent about helping make sure that I don't have any violations because I've been advertising on Facebook for a long time. I've even advertised like cannabis products like CBD and things of that nature, where it's like traditionally you're not able to on some of those areas, but it's like there's ways that you can accomplish some of those things, still be within the guidelines and not do anything illegal. So it's like with the real estate stuff, I've always been just very attention oriented. And so it's like all of these little small things that people don't necessarily do on the daily, they could accidentally throw an image in, or if they say the word drinks even in their copy, like the actual like text that they use, it could be that triggers an algorithmic shutdown. And then really the third mistake is people shut them off too soon. People shut their ads off before they really even start performing, and they're like, it's been a week, I'm not going to do it. And the thing I say about that is there's an algorithm that's learning. The machine is basically adapting to what people are clicking on and what people are interested in clicking on. And so if there's a person scrolling Facebook and then they stop and then they look at it, so that's an impression, or their eyeballs are looking at that. If they click on it, then boom, you've got the click. So all of those little moments, Facebook is tracking. And so it's identifying when people are interacting or viewing the images or the text that you share. And so the first 4 days, or like 3 to 4 days, that first part is the whole learning thing. And then your cost per click piece is really high. There's all this like stress, you're like, it's not working. And then that 5th day, like, oh, something happens. And so all of a sudden your cost per click is going down. More people are starting to go to your location where you're pointing it to. And then if you're, with a listing like you have, and it matches someone's parameters that they need, bookings. And so it's really like the more people you show it to, the more likelihood you'll have people book. And it's just kind of like that same rule of thumb. But it's like, yeah, there's a few other mistakes, but those are the big ones for people.
So I noticed you said you were running Facebook ads for real estate before the short-term rental thing, right? So like now, because that's one thing I'm starting to get into. Me and my mastermind group were just talking about that the other day. They're like, hey, start running ads to find sellers. Now, with doing that, now what was your conversion rate with doing that? Like what would someone put up to get a seller to call them off their Facebook ad?
Like that kind of conversion rate, definitely different. So like when you're trying to get sellers and you're trying to do the real estate lead game where you're trying to get like their lead information, I've had it cost me like $7 a lead to like $24 a lead. And it's one of those things that when I really break what it is down, it's Facebook's own valuation of the user. And so ultimately the user who clicks on more ads and does more purchasing online and responds to more and engages with more, Facebook values those people at a higher dollar amount. And so if that person is going to be more affluent, higher income level and more accessible, they might cost like $30 a click. Even doing like insurance ads. Like I think one of my old ad clients, he did a lot of whole life insurance and he did other insurance pieces, and he would spend $35 either direct mail or $35 when he did online advertising for the click stuff to just get a client. And so he was like, well, it doesn't matter which one I end up doing. I end up spending the same. I was like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't work out to be lower on the digital thing. I was like, I thought it would be. It's just like, you have to try with all of these things. And I think that the fear of like, oh, I'm spending money and I'm not getting the results I want. It's like, you're getting so much more than the result that you're originally wanting. Because even on any of my ad runs, even if it's like a failure and I have 0 bookings from it, I have all this data that thousands of people have clicked on stuff. I know exactly what I need to do to tailor my next ad, and then I iterate on it. And so I ultimately create a new version, maximized of all the learnings from the previous version, and maybe a few little weird things I throw in just to try it out because it was different enough to where someone could pay attention to it. That's why I ended up doing like emojis. So I ended up like, I think my 3rd run of ads for short-term rentals, I was like, I'm just going to put a bunch of emojis in there. Let's just see what happens. And see, same copy, I just added emojis, and I got more responses from emojis. And it's not like just random ass emojis, right? It's like actual like little house emoji for like, I've got a rental, a little mountain emoji for like, it's a beach. I don't know, it's a mountain house, right? It's a cabin, right? A little like beach with a palm tree on it. It's a beach location. So it's something that's relevant. If there's like golf near my short-term rental, that little golf emoji goes into it. And it's like all these little things. I don't know what people are going to like, but as many Venn diagrams as I can get out there of recognizable icons that people are like, oh, I'm interested in that thing, I'm going to do.
Geofencing. So
yeah, geofencing.
Okay. So now do you run any Google ads?
I do, but I really don't like putting money into Google anymore right now. Actually, I've not paid Google for a little while. I'm about to start some weird YouTube pre-roll ads for my Joshua Tree place. So, I mean, that'll be me using Google. But ultimately, like Google search marketing, the cost per click on some of those is like $3 a click or like $2 and some change. And so realistically, like if I was comfortable about spending like $3,000 a month on like my ad campaign, I'd probably get enough exposure out of the click numbers to match the potential actual bookings. And so I think about statistically, like if I need to have 10% of whatever I'm actually like hitting in terms of overall reach is going to then result with 2% of those 10% booking. So it's like a very small subset of the larger data pool. Google is all about search intent. And so when you're having search intent, there's only a few things you can really limit based on like, I'm searching for a vacation rental in certain areas, because now people are actually transiting on the web to like the Airbnbs and they're like, I know where to go for vacation rentals, and they're not really searching Google for them a lot. And actually, like if you go to like trends.google.com, which is like one of my favorite places in the entire web for like looking at some of this data. So like you should really dig into some of this stuff. You can go in and you can look for like short-term rental, STR. You can do all those different things like for your masterclass. You can then pinpoint which cities people are searching for your brand. You could actually even find out like the targeted metropolitan areas. I'll gladly show you guys offline too. And I'll probably put it up on my group as well. Because like all these things, all these weird tools, it's like I've run like 3 different digital marketing agencies over the past 8-9 years. There's been so much stuff that I've learned about SEO and all these different search elements, especially like advertising, that in the end of the day, like I'm basically not spending the large amounts of money that most of those businesses cost. I'm just like a few $100 to Facebook. And then realistically, like with my clients that I end up working with, so I started taking on short-term rental advertising clients because people are like, I don't want to do this. Can you just do this? I was like, so what do I even do with that? It's just like, this is not even my main business. I'm just going to have to figure it out. So ultimately, I just charge them like 300 bones or 350 for a property or something like that. If they have multiples, I just charge 300 minimum per. And then ultimately they have whatever they're paying to Facebook. And then realistically, if you have a breakdown of that, it's like $20 a day.
And your Facebook ads, they go to Instagram automatically, right?
Yeah, but Instagram doesn't have a lot of people clicking.
That's interesting.
So I spent like, I think $200 on Instagram solo, just by itself at the first part of my my foray into this, because I thought Instagram would be a great place for it. Do some reels, do some live, something like that, right? But I got 0 traction out of it. And it was like not really even growing the Instagram page. I was like, this seems weird. But it's mostly, I think that the demographic looking for vacation rentals isn't necessarily on Instagram for booking unless you're constantly posting on Instagram. You have to be one of those people that like posts on the daily, that post the reel, they post the lives. It's really one of those like I'm active. But yeah, otherwise Instagram, I see no traffic. I see like 30 to 40 people click on those ads every 1,000 or something like that. They clicks on Facebook.
Wow.
Oh,
Now, speaking of reels, that you brought it up. We have people on the show, there's people in the industry that say, okay, I'm not going to pay nothing on ads, but I'm just going to go and make a bunch of TikToks and reels and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm going to do it myself, and then I'm going to get people to. I'm going to drive traffic that way. Now, what are the limitations on that? I mean, can people succeed that way, or you still need to pay for ads?
People can succeed any of the ways that you go about it, but really it's all about hustle, right? How much time and effort are they going to put into those things? And like for me, running ads, like ads work like this. This is cool. So when I first started doing social media, I was like, have to explain to people all this like importance of posting all the time, right? Because you want to be top of mind, all that stuff. Ads do all that for me. So like I literally will run the ads. It will display the same ad to people multiple times, and it will display it when they're on Facebook. And so if I posted to just like my Instagram and I had to spend the 20-30 minutes to build the reel, and I had that time chunk gone, it'd be all of that time each week. I'd be doing that each day for those amount of hours. It just, for me, it's like a cost intensive piece that is not worth it. So running ads does all of that work for me, and I don't have to do any of the actual daily grind. And so I literally will post like 4 pictures on my Instagram to initiate, and then maybe I'll post the other photos to have like a smattering towards like a digital billboard, and it has all of the photos you might see on the Airbnb. But my thought process is also, I don't want to show all of what is actually on Airbnb or any of the actual like booking sites, because I want people to be curious. I want them to be, what does that look like on the inside, right? And so then I started showing less on Facebook and Instagram to drive them to click on my Airbnb link. And so I think that with some of those little changes, it's like, yeah, Instagram hustle is good. TikTok hustle, I don't really know yet, but I'll find out some of that. It'll be cool. Since my Joshua Tree place is near LA, Vegas, and San Diego, I'm like, I'm just going to do weird things that a lot of people who are hip and with it are, doing. So it's like the TikTok thing is definitely part of that whole equation, because that's really where a lot of people are spending a lot of time and effort. But I'm going to run ads on TikTok too, and I'm literally going to do the same shit. I'm not going to end up spending my time making it. I'm going to make my few ads, run 10 of them or something like that, and then not have to worry about it. So when each of the users is on their own phone, they see the ad that gets delivered to them when they're there, not necessarily when I hope they might be perhaps viewing my stuff. Because it's like, yeah, it's very hard.
No, when you're running these ads, because this makes me think of something too. are you running these ads from like a personal picture, like a personal you as the personal picture, or are you
Oh,
running
like a realtor?
Yeah. Like, are you running this from like a business page?
Yeah. So my favorite thing about that is everyone who's like, well, I've already got a business page for my Facebook for my properties. It's like an umbrella page. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to make a Facebook page for your property. And the Facebook page for your property is going to match the image that people are going to land on when they go and click on your property. And so that little like profile picture matches the very first like Airbnb photo or something like that. And that way, when they see the advertisement, they have that little kind of like whatever the corner profile picture is. It's never like my face or anyone else's face. It's always the house or whatever the actual property is. Sometimes I'll have like an internal picture like of the cool bedroom or some sort of iconic thing that's like very recognizable. But realistically, it's always something that's related to the house. And it's always like create like a quick and dirty vacation rental Facebook page, have all of that optimized, put some information on it, add your link for booking and leave it. Ultimately, I don't even believe in posting a lot of stuff to that.
So now you got me wondering, because I'm like, man, that's a lot of pages I'd have to make for every property.
It's like 5 minutes a page. It's okay.
Okay.
I mean, it takes me 5 minutes to build a page. It's not that long. You like need the profile picture, the cover photo, and really where did it go?
Oh, you're just putting the name on it and then just putting the picture up, then just run ads off of it.
Oh, it is like minimum viable product, dude. Minimum viable product.
Okay, so now would you suggest someone running an ad from a business page because they have a multiple properties, or just create a page per property?
I've been testing that out and I don't see the higher clicks. And so like I have a few clients that have like business pages that they're like, I'm going to use my brand. I'm like, that's cool. Your brand's fine. I love it. But ultimately, this is what I've been seeing that works. And then with showing the data, it's like minute differences. But for me, it's like a little optimization tweak of just putting the Facebook page to match the property. It just hands down one of the better approaches, because the what you see is what you get factor, right? People want to be able to see what they're going to, and they want to be able to have the landing page be reflective of what they clicked. And so if the advertisement comes from a property management company, I think people trust property management companies a little bit less. And so they're like, oh, this is just a property management company. I'm probably not going to have like the best Airbnb or VRBO experience. I'm going to have a really cool vacation with someone that's going to like really host me. And so the experience of going and being hosted, I think that is an appeal for some people. And so like with all of that stuff, yeah, it's like just make your own little Facebook page for the properties and like have at it. Now, people who have I've one guy, he's got like 8 of the same property type in the same area, but ultimately it's like they all look the same. It's like slightly different versions, but he has a direct booking site that we send things to. So ultimately, like that's the solution on there, where it's like you don't want to send it to the individual booking sites on there, because then you have all of that extra costs like per diem, because each of the URLs, like the actual address of where you send people for ad, is an ad campaign. And so like that ad run is associated to the landing page. And so the landing page being like either the direct booking site with multiple properties on it, or the one booking site that has just the one on there. With the multiples, it's a little harder to capture the people right. But if you have 8 different properties and Facebook allows you to have 10 different images that you can try at the same time, I'm like, cool, I have 8 different houses that then can appeal to somebody, and it will rotate, and Facebook will find the most performing one of those houses, and I can then present that to the client saying, hey, this is the one property that you should use to promote all of them, but ultimately have the different ones available so people can see and choose. But it's again the one that produces the most clicks.
I love it. I love it. Being an ad scientist that you are, right?
Ad scientist.
Have you noticed anything that people can do? Okay, like the Airbnb algorithms. Have you noticed anything that you can do to help you get more clicks and get,
Absolutely. Bookings? So the Airbnb thing, this has been really fun. I love that you brought that up. So I've been over the course of like the past, I don't know, let's say 8 months, I've been slowly meeting all these people in the short-term rental world who are like giving out information about how to optimize their Airbnbs and how to maximize it. There's amazing people out there. There's a guy named Stephen Eagles. He's in the UK. He's got a fantastic, like, get more effing bookings, right? And so he's all about optimizing the actual landing page of when people land based on things that he's learned from SEO. And so it's all about like adding in fun things people can do in those areas and all those little nuances. And so I believe strongly in optimizing like your actual descriptions and adding in a lot of text. People are like, I don't need a lot of text. I'm like, it's not for the people reading it. It's for the algorithm. So add in a bunch of things. Add in so much stuff about what you could do, what the families could do. You show up more in searches when that happens. Then the images, captions on your images are gangbusters, because again, it's text. And so the machine is reading the text associated to the images. And there's another element that you can kind of tweak. So those things are just great by itself. But then like you get into like the people who like do the rank breeze stuff, where they're like, okay, I need to be paying attention to what position I am and where I'm going to go and how I'm doing compared to all the others. I blow all of those out of the water when I just run ads. I'm like always at the top. I'm always number one. I'm like the one guy I've been working with that has rank breeze, that he keeps tabs on this stuff. He's like, we're just always on the top, man. Like, I don't know what to say. We're just always there. I'm like, well, you know, you started not on the top, so now you're on the top. This is good. So let's stay on the top. This is fun. We'll keep running. But what it's doing is, I know that the actual search engine optimization element that Airbnb is using, it definitely contributes view counts. And so view counts, in terms of how many people are viewing that listing, that in of itself is massive. And so like I send thousands of people to my link, right? So I'm sending a huge amount of people there, that ultimately it's like about half of those people are probably just not interested, and they're just like, whatever, but they still click on it, right? And then maybe like 30% of those people are like, oh, I'm now going to look in this area of wherever I didn't know I could vacation in, and they're going to figure out where they wanted to go. And then those like remaining people, the 20%, so you've got like the people who are like going to talk about it, share it, comment, do some sort of thing. And then really that like 2% end portion is where you have the actual bookings. And so all of that like bell curve of people, it's that same kind of thing of like, you know, the extreme on one end and the extreme on the other end. It's really weird how all statistical this stuff is. And so you just throw a bunch of people at the Airbnb listing, all of the other Airbnb algorithm is affected. And so no matter what you do, even if you didn't have like the best pictures or anything like that, you could throw a lot of people there, but you might not get bookings because you might not have the best pictures. So it's like, you know, even that, right, in of itself, have good photos at the base level. It's like, I think that like, that's one area that I think people are trying to skimp on. Like, I don't really want to spend it yet. It's like, if you haven't gotten professional photos, definitely do it. It's one of those things that it will make or break a person's decision whether or not they'll actually book with you. That's the same thing going back to like even what you say about it, right? It's like if you describe your property and you're not saying what neighborhood it's in or what part of the country it's in or any of those details, you're just assuming that people are going to know based on their search of that one area, it's going to also cause a problem. And so like anyone running ads to their links and their listings need to have every bit of information on that listing that they would need to know about the location and the property to be able to book.
I have a question for you, because you got me thinking, because I used to run $1 a day Facebook ads just to rank higher on Airbnb.
Man.
So I used to do that. But one thing I'm thinking right now, so I create a page, right? And it's like a little house of my property. Can I create 2 sets of ads off that page, one going to my direct booking site and then one going to Airbnb?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
It just costs you more. So it's like when you do that stuff, you can do an A/B test, or you can just have multiple ads. Like you can have dozens of ads running for the same page. Like I have one ad running that's for new people. I have one ad running for people who have clicked on my ads that I want to have them pay attention to me again on remarketing, right? And then I sometimes have just like an ad telling people about it, like check this out, like an awareness thing. So like realistically, like I like to optimize the one, just the getting people in for most people. And then I start working on the building the retargeting piece, but I don't really use like the awareness piece for people. I'm like, I test that with my own stuff. And it's like, it's just a weird thing for exposing the brand and building the Facebook page. But actually I want to comment real quick, the dollar Facebook spend thing. So this is from Facebook's ad people itself. Like I was on a call last week with them, and I was going through like their big demand right now for reels. They're just really into it. They're like starting to pay people to do reels. There's lots of stuff they're moving. But one of the other nuggets of information I was able to secure was, if you aren't spending like $200 on the ad campaign a month, you are not going to see substantial results to actually have an ROI. And so when you have an ROI concern, and actually people come to me with like return of ad spend or return of investment conversations all of the time. And whenever they're like, well, how do you even verify that? And I'm like, Really, this is how I break it down. Like if I turn my ads off, I'm not getting any inquiries or bookings. Yeah, I don't know. If I turn my ads on, I'm getting bookings and inquiries. It's pretty cool. I spend the $300 knowing I'm really okay with that because it's part of the thing. And it's like, it costs me like 1 cleaning or 2 cleanings a month to run ads. And when I think about it, it's like, I'm already spending like $200 when I clean each time I have a turn. I might as well be okay and be comfortable with spending like twice that, if at least, on doing ads. And that's where I came up with essentially like spending up to $400 a month.
Man, I'm loving this. My thought process is I'm going to run 2 sets of ads.
Right.
One straight to Airbnb, but I'm going to go into Hostfully and raise my prices by 20%.
Yes.
And the other one straight to my direct booking site. So they'll get a 20% discount. Yeah. That's what me over thinking. I'm like, hold on.
So when you do the discount thing, another thing to pay attention to is Facebook will like shut your ad down if you say things like discounts in different ways. And so you have to be very delicate about how you say that. So you just say, get blank % off your next booking by going through here. And it's just like you very clearly state what it is. So don't make it be like, I'm going to hook you up with a discount or get a deal or something like that. Mm-hmm. Using that type of language is a no-no, and it'll get algorithm upset with your ads and it'll get them rejected. They might run, but they might get rejected after they run for a few days and people might report them too. And so there's always like little nuances of that, which actually like some of the haters in some of the areas who don't like Airbnb, like actually Joshua Tree is for one. They've been really working to get Airbnb limited. There's actually like a moratorium on new permits to get new Airbnbs. My property got slid right under there. We got our permit, no problem. So I was like, yes, this is good. Doesn't affect me right now, but it will be an issue. But I mean, like ultimately, when those people comment on my ads, it is just hate. It's like, but the vitriol and that type of trolling that you run into online, you just have to moderate it and manage it a little bit. Set it so that way people, when they comment on those things, you go and remove those comments, especially if they're not helpful or they're derogatory or disparaging. People don't want to see that stuff. It's just hateful stuff.
Doesn't it help you rank up higher though?
It does help it rank higher. It does. It does. And actually, any algorithm will be like, oh, it's interactions, or oh, it's an activity. Even like on YouTube, actually, the like button versus the dislike button, YouTube looks at it the same way. It says, oh, it's an interaction, so we don't really care. It's it's all part of it.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, you like I said, you're the ad scientist, right? So this is a side question, asking for a friend kind of deal. So when someone's scrolling, right? And then there's an ad pops up and it's a pretty bikini girl or something right away. And then you go back and then she's gone and the commercial starts. What is that called?
So it's objectification. So ultimately when there's sexual objectification happening where we're trying to use, the whole sex sells kind of thing, Facebook doesn't like that either. So ultimately, if you use that kind of stuff in your ads, if you have even anyone in a bikini, you're likely going to get it rejected. It is not necessarily copacetic. And so when we think about it, it's like anyone doing advertising who has like a product that people are trying to put themselves into, there's a trick that they use where they will have like the person's head obscured by whatever the top of the picture gets cut off by, and they're just showing the watch or the outfit or whatever it is, right? And so ultimately people can put themselves into that place and then they can be a part of it. Then they can drive the impulse to buy it. So the same thing with real estate, right? If you're showing people in any of these Airbnbs, people are going to think there's someone in my vacation rental. That's like the first thing their brain's going to cue into. It's like, there's someone there. That's terrible. I don't want someone to be in the space I'm going to rent. And so I think that like any of those things, no, you should absolutely go away from. Like, don't do any of those things. And those little bait and switches, like where you have something show up that's like, ooh, really like stops your scroll. And then you go back and like, that's not even anything in what it was, or however that works, right? I like stopping people's scrolls with just like weird emojis. And I think that the house picture has been ultimately what I'm helping people stop scroll with. One thing I did find is that like the videos, which like I'm a filmmaker, my background is in film and video marketing. Like I've worked for video game companies that are incredibly huge. I did like Lord of the Rings video games and all this stuff, like crazy amounts of weird things. Video has always been a thing. Yeah, I was like, in 2011, I was trying to convince Warner Brothers that video is a big thing and they should start using more of it to advertise. And it was this whole conversation like, nah, it was weird. But like, it was one of those things that like by like 2014, 2015, they're like, you got something about this. And then by like 2018, I think it was like 86% of all web traffic was video. And so when you look at statistics like that, where we like to consume video, it's easier. None of the videos work for Airbnb advertising so far that I've tried. So I'm trying like a bunch of different style of videos. They're like reels and different like emotions, different activities, different like slides, different like transitions, all sorts of like little small things to try and see what might be helpful for people, especially now that Facebook's really pushing a lot of effort into the reels. Genuinely, you can do reels through ads as well. So I have all of my ads showing in the reels anyways. So it's like I'm doing reels with, I don't have to do any of them myself.
So you're saying that, okay, going back to the sex sales thing and objectification, but the big companies still do that like crazy. How you're saying Facebook don't like it, but that's all they do.
Like it. They do that a lot. So when it is one of those things that they've had it work in the past and they ultimately try it again, there are a lot of ethical aspects to those things, right? And so like when we think about like all of the landscape that we have had, and even as men, right, thinking about this process and like, you know, taking a step back. So all of these women of the internet over the course of the past 20 years have had dialogues that are really disparaging and derogatory. And ultimately, when it comes to the objectification, we see like a landslide kind of approach about how people view using images of women versus using images of men, right? And so using images of men where you're like, you know, your shirt off and you're on the beach, that kind of stuff, you don't really see too many of those because ultimately it's like not necessarily the thing that people think, oh, I should run these types of ads, right? So they think back to an outmoded process of what they want people to be enticed by. And yeah, maybe 47% of the people actually out there are men and interested in this stuff. But with my Airbnb ads and actually with every one of my clients' ads, like 80% of the ones who click on it are women. 80%.
They do make the decision to travel.
They make the decisions. They're all the matriarchs of the family. And so it's like, I think that it would really hinder someone in the short-term rental world to use anything that would be offensive to women and just not sensitive or compassionate about some of the uses of images. But that's something that I've been a proponent of for a long time. Like a lot of my film work and video work is all about gender and how we can not appropriate and how we can show it in a different way and how we could all be a little bit better by not using these cliches or stereotypes or these tropes. And so like when you have a cliche moment where it's like, that's lazy advertising. That's just all that is. And so that's why they're getting away with it. It's lazy. They're waiting for them to get reported. They're waiting for the ad to get like removed. And then they take out that thumbnail. And then all of a sudden you don't see that image of the lady before it.
Yeah, I always wondered why like 90% of the sex sells, whatever, is girls in bikinis instead of, as I'm like, is 50% of this world is women.
It's unfair.
Do they want to see, do they want to see that? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, but then I think, well, the dudes, it's been dudes running advertising for centuries, right? So I mean, they're the ones that are doing it. Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah. No, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, because you said something. You said you noticed that most of the people who click, I think you said 84% are women. Now, do you retarget that? Like, hey, I noticed women, I'm going to retarget it. And then
the retargeting part of it, just like the actual regular ad in general, like I can't target the different gender demographics. So you're not allowed to target just women. And actually, I've met a few people who have some pretty successful short-term rental businesses and property managers who literally target women in states and they run their ads without compliance. And I'm like, that sounds really risky. I wouldn't ever do that. But they're like, it works for me. I'm like, I still have 10 to 20% men that click my ads. I don't want to not have those guys click it. That's a bad idea. That's alienating.
No. How would you even do that? Like you can just go in there and like, and how would you do that? Like run that under the table where you're only targeting women?
So when you click on like the special category for housing, then all the restrictions come into play. So if you don't click that initial special category, then you have open access to all of the different targeting demographic pieces. And so like you can target people based on like what they ate for breakfast, essentially. So there's all this data that people will put into some of the marketing stuff. But when you do the special categories like housing, credit, employment, and it's gotta be something else. So yeah, at least for the most part. Oh yeah, the other one's gambling and casinos.
Oh yeah.
But like when you look at like those special categories, the limitations and the rules in there, those are actually in compliance with whatever laws. And so like the laws go, and usually the advertising is restricted to like the US only. If you want to actually advertise in other countries, there's like, you have to apply for that capability. And there's a whole lot of process to that. And sometimes you have to actually submit like your photo ID and proof of who you are, if you're going to run ads in general, and there's all this little process of accountability. And it's almost like a very fiduciary setup where you have to be this trusted individual to not like, screw up because you're dealing with a lot of people's money, especially if you're running ads for other people. So I take it very seriously when I do those. And I always treat the other ones I'm working on just like my own properties. I don't want anyone to like lose out.
Man. So my thing is, all right. So we've been having we've had success with hosting travel nurses. We love travel nurses. They book for 3 months. They pay good money, great tenants, they don't cause no trouble. How will I market on Facebook to target, to get more travel nurses?
Basically, you just want to geofence each of the hospitals in that area that you want to work on. And you have like a mile radius around that hospital. You just find the address for the hospital, right? So the address of the hospital, where the major hospitals are, would have all those traveling people, right? For the most part, wouldn't necessarily be like really small ones. And so like for whatever area, you might have like a few different geos. Now it's going to get like a mile radius. So it's going to have people that go in and out of that area, people that travel to the hospital. You can have it be people who live in that area, or you can have it be people who traveled recently into that area. And that's what you would end up choosing, people who traveled recently into that area. So you'd get nurses, you'd also get patients. But ultimately, even if a patient gets those ads, think about this. And this is the indirect possibilities of advertising. So say some random person sees this ad that isn't necessarily a traveling nurse, but they're really good friends with the nurse that they've made while they're at the hospital temporarily. And so ultimately they're on their phones probably more than the nurses. And then they're like, oh, hey, I hear that you're moving and this is a thing I just saw. Did you need like a place to stay? And like there are all these different conversations that could happen that you have no idea about, but the possibilities are open to it. And so it's like, yeah, target the hospitals, even though you're going to get a little like, collateral, patients, you're going to reach the people in those conversations. And that's what I like.
We've had patients though that come to town for treatments and stay for 3 months, also 4 months,
there you
whatever,
go.
while
Perfect.
they're recovering. So yeah, I never even thought of that. That's a good way to attract the patients.
Yeah, I do know that there's a few few cool groups on Facebook for like healthcare professionals for short-term rentals as well. And so it's usually people who are investing in it and that kind of stuff. And so the people who like the midterm rentals and have those little aspects, especially like traveling nurses, right? Or they have like the corporate housing. So like those are always like the how do you get those clients kind of thing. And it's really like you target the businesses that you want the employees to pay attention to. And so if the corporation, is a large corporation that always has people traveling in and out of the area, target their headquarters in your local area. And then just say, hey, people traveling in and out of this temporarily, check it out.
So, okay, one more question on that. Yeah. What is a geofence? I mean, I've heard it thrown around so many times and I kind of know what it is, but what is a geofence and how do you build one?
So it is a geographic border that you create around an area, typically around a zip code, a address, all sorts of things of that nature, right? And so like if you use Snapchat, which I don't use for this at all, but it's cool, their geofencing is so good that you can actually like while you're in a like Arby's or something like that, they geofence that Arby's to then have a filters like I'm at Arby's or something like that, right? So that's a geofence of that specific location where they have that one filter then available. Then if you step off the property, that filter is no longer available. And so this is a specific physical geographic region that the advertisement is going to be available. I do this kind of thing with like cell phones sometimes too, where like if I have a client and like I need to get a bunch of people to download my video game, I'm like, okay, cool, we'll just send it to a bunch of people's phones. And like, all right, cool. But then you send it to a bunch of people's phones, they open their phone, they're on the internet, they just get like a little pop-up ad on the internet or wherever it is. They're like, oh, cool. Then they click on it, or they don't. But ultimately, it's when they click on those things, it's great. But the geographic targeting piece, it's my favorite targeting variable of all for the short-term rental stuff. And I think that like the 300-mile radius is usually like, I started that because Airbnb was like, most of the people that travel to your Airbnb are traveling within 300 miles. I was like, oh, that's a fun fact. And I just turned that into my marketing strategy. And so now that the seasons have been changing, like for my Crystal Beach place, it's Texas. This peak season of summertime is usually over. It's ultimately moving into the fall season, which is not necessarily a big touristy season for this part of town. It's like, it's east of Galveston, this small little peninsula, Crystal Beach, adorable little place. but it doesn't really have a large year-round tourism thing. It's only really the summer times. You can drive on the beach at that beach, which is why it's really cool. You can actually like cruise up and down. And so it's like, it gets a little crazy. One of my worst reviews ever, I feel terrible about this old woman rented my beach during what's called Jeep Weekend. And it's like thousands of Jeeps on the beach, right? And she's like, we wanted to hear the waves. We didn't hear waves crashing. I feel bad because they like reached out after they had already left and we couldn't really do anything about it. But like, it was ultimately one of those things like I felt bad. But yeah, so if you have those things, different little subtle things can help.
Real quick on that, because I've been going to South Padre Island for years. You know, we're in Texas. We love it. So yeah, Crystal Beach is up north from there. So what a lot of people do, they try to get winter Texans to take over during the slow season, right? You already know that. I mean, you already.
So winter Texans, I don't even know anything about winter Texans. Tell me about it, dude.
Okay. So these
winter Texans,
older people, you know, elderly from, let's say, Michigan, Wisconsin, you know, up there where it gets freaking cold during the winter. They come and live in Texas, South Texas, you know, South Padre, anywhere along the shore for, you know, let me see, December, January, February, you know, so yeah, November, December, January, February, somewhere, you know, when it gets cold up there, they want to be away from the cold. So yeah, that in mind, go target the heck out of those northern states that come down to Texas, and there you go.
Is that why my Illinois and Michigan ads are doing so gangbusters right now?
Exactly.
This is crazy. I was like, I'm just going to go more north. And actually, like, one of the things I did is I used Google Trends, and I was like identifying like people looking for like that location. And there's like a heat map essentially of like the Midwest that goes up and down throughout that, like, you know, Chicago all the way up. There's like people searching on Google for that stuff. And so again, back to Mike's point of like, you know, searching and paying ads for Google. It's like, there's the people out there, and you might not spend too much, but they are searching for it. But it's like, yeah, costly.
There you go, winter Texas, man. They're like I said, they run it out for a few months at a time, and then go back up north.
That's great, man. I love that.
So yeah, now you know.
That's killer. I'm gonna add extra northern states into it. I think that's gonna be one of those things. Like, where do people snowbird from?
Yes,
nice.
sir.
Now you can target all the Jeep people too while you're at it.
Right? Oh man, yeah. And actually, like when I was doing all the, you know, prep work and even learning all these things and putting it out there, like I ended up writing a book in June and just like throwing all of these things into a real short, comprehensive guide on how to do this stuff, which is really, it kind of mirrors my YouTube video I made. And so like when it came down to really like the iterations and the processes and the tactics and some of the strategies that I do, I'm really transparent, which is really weird for an advertiser. People are always like, don't steal my secret sauce. I'm like, there's plenty to go around, guys. We all can have a very good, lucrative business, and you don't have to struggle. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I've realized through this whole short-term thing is like, when people feel like they're struggling with this stuff, it's so not fun anymore.
So what? Okay, so like our listeners out there, they don't know how to get started. Of course, they want to contact you and stuff like that. We'll get to that. But okay, can you give like some five easy ways that you can market and it starts working right away?
Yeah. All right. Let me pull up a list. So I made a little like short cheat sheet, how to kind of like what is helpful for running ads. And
besides bikini girls.
You know, it's not bikini girls. Though. It's not.
I'm just kidding.
Like literally, no one's gonna click on that. They're like,
nobody clicks on bikini girls.
I'm not gonna do it.
He's saying that because his wife's in the next room.
Oh no, I literally see the stats and the data of it. So like when I think about all these things, I'm like, well, the data doesn't really show that or reflect it. So how are we going to really have this conversation educatedly is by testing it. And I know that when I put any images of people, even I've used stock images before, like of people's bodies laying on like a whatever kind of thing, like when I didn't have the actual like good photos of my property. So I ended up basically trying to see what images would work, and it was never those images, never. And so it was only the images of the house, the exterior of the house. And that was like, I had like a great picture of like 2 chairs looking out over the Gulf of Mexico. I was like, this is the best picture ever. I loved it. Like 16 people clicked on it. I was devastated. I was like, oh.
They got Instagram fatigue because everybody puts those photos on like nonstop, right, on their vacations.
Right? Yeah, so it's a thing. Okay, so
I'll go ahead.
Oh yeah, go for it. I was about to dive into this thing. So Micah, what do you think?
No, go ahead and dive in. Then I'm going to ask my last question because I was thinking about something. Go ahead.
All right, good. So essentially, like with the short-term rentals, what I did is I made a little quick sheet, like a quick guide to help people figure out like where they needed to start. And it's really having a digital presence. So if they have no digital presence already, getting one is the first step. And so that's Facebook, Instagram. If they, want a Pinterest page, hell yeah, Pinterest. I love that stuff. A YouTube channel to have any of the content as videos just go up on YouTube. YouTube is one of the, so it's the second largest search engine out there. And businesses make like maybe 12% of it or something like that. Now of YouTube, people can get really quality content out there, but you don't even need quality content. You just need a bunch of content. And so if you had like a bunch of images for your property and you turn them into videos, again, I'm a filmmaker, so I'm like always thinking videos, right? But I just take my images, I run them through like GoPro, and I have like a little quick image run video that I just throw up onto YouTube. And it doesn't necessarily take me a lot of time, but it establishes content out there. And so establishing the digital presence, putting your images up, putting some videos up, whatever you can to kind of lead people back to the listing that you need. That's like the biggest, most important thing that people, like, if they're not doing, they absolutely should be doing as well. I have a couple more things for you, but do you guys have any questions on that before I scroll down?
Oh, go ahead. On this, yeah, go ahead.
All right, hold on, get to the next page. So I made a two-pager, essentially, like how to do short-term rental advertising. So like realistically, if they don't have Google My Business, that's also another one that is killer to have. So actually I had to Google My Business, my first property, because it didn't even show up in Crystal Beach on Airbnb's system. It showed up in Galveston, which is like 18 minutes away on a ferry ride across the bay. And so I was like, this is not gonna do. And I had a huge problem where they wouldn't necessarily update it. I had to change and actually add my property onto Google My Business based on the actual GPS location of the house. And so I had to physically add in like the latitude and longitude, send that off to Airbnb and get it in there. But the only way it really worked is because I updated Google Maps by creating the Google My Business that had the actual place added to Google Maps. And so then Google Maps is then used by Airbnb to verify the location, if that makes sense. Wow. And so using Google My Business, I was able to Band-Aid or actually really kind of, prevent any issues with people finding my place in the first place. But it also gives me another opportunity to add a bunch of photos and other things up there and my link to book and everything that goes along with things on Google. And that also does have an appeal where it could be like a direct booking site. If someone is searching, right, Micah, this is another thing for that, right? So someone's searching and you got a lot of Google My Business photos that have a lot of things in it that people would search for your properties, then you will likely come up in those Google searches without having to spend money on Google Business, right?
Yeah, that's
but it's like,
Google
it's
My
a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
So like, that's another one that I think is really powerful. So then the other thing I think is really cool is doing the local guides and tips. So of the local guides and tips, like the things to do in the area, like if you have a place in some part of the country that no one has ever been to, what are they going to do there? I don't know. They don't know. You got to tell them.
No. Have you, no, I just did this today.
Yeah?
I created, I created the Instagram guide.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah, that's what I did today. I created the Instagram guide. I was talking to Mark Simpson at Boostly.
Oh yeah,
like, good. He goes, man, you need to create a guide. And so when I went, I'm like, let me test this thing out, right? So I went into my branded Instagram page with all my stuff. Yep. And I was like, you can create a guide for every city that you're in. And then when they go to it, they click on it. They're like, oh, you do all this in the city. So I'm getting somebody off Fiverr to create a bunch of guides for every city.
Good.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, this is powerful. I didn't know about that.
Mark is so great. Like that guy is gangbusters. I mean, like, the direct booking stuff and all those little things he does. Some of the things I think that when we talk about like all these different little nuances to do, not any one way is the best. It's always like, there's a lot of little things out there that you can do, small things you can tweak. There's no one solution for it. Like I have one guy I've been helping with ads. Like we cannot get a single inquiry, no matter how many ads we run for his property. It's in the Cape Coral, Florida. I was like, who the hell goes to Cape Coral, Florida? What's in Cape Coral, Florida? I don't know what's in Cape Coral, Florida. And so like, I had him like gather all the things that people could do in the area and put that into his listing. So it's like, there's little elements of like, well, we'll try new added stuff to see if it will help people book there. But it's like, this weird stuff. So if anyone else is in Cape Coral, Florida, like I want to talk. I have some serious issues and questions about what's happening in that area. Come on, let's dialogue this.
I'm having you, because that actually kind of leads into my next question. Okay, so let's say we're in a market that's like saturated with Airbnb rentals. We'll use Houston, for example.
Houston, good.
Yeah, Houston, for example. Now it's just saturated, right? Would I have a market advantage if I just start running, I don't know, $200 a month, $300 a month Facebook ads on the properties that I have?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, like if you run at least $200 a month, you'll have a market increase of potential bookings. And you'll also beat a lot of your competition who's not advertising. And the great thing about advertising is even though there's only like a certain amount of people that you're going to run the ad to and show it to, there's millions of people. And there's so many people who are interested in vacationing. And some of the people don't even know that they want to vacation in the area that you're going to. So when you start running ads, say like I'm running a lot of ads in Oklahoma right now for my Texas property as well, right? So Oklahoma, I've had some weird experiences with the eastern part of Oklahoma for sure. But like Oklahoma City, I get really decent bookings out of. And so I'm like, okay, this area seems really good and I'm just going to keep it going. But I wouldn't have really discovered that had I not just like splattered a lot of different ads over a bunch of different states and doing like full statewide, like not just Texas, right? But like Louisiana, all the way around, like all of them border the actual state that you're in.
Nope.
Even though your ads are going to be a little bit diluted, you're going to show up in different cities where people are going to click. And then your next run, you target the cities that people clicked in of those states that you ran. And then you're like drilling it down, right? So you use like wide spaghetti test and then you shoot it in small areas. So like you'll be, especially if you actually put the ads to your Airbnb listing, you'll not only juice your Airbnb listing with all the rank goodness that comes with a bunch of people looking at it. And so that listing in itself on that platform will have a lot of activity. And you can do this with any of the platforms. And so like if I want my VRBO to be good, which I don't send any of my ads to VRBO like ever, I'm just not interested in it. It's like, it's more complicated. I'm like, I'm just sending them to Airbnb. Again, it's that Kleenex thing. But for a lot of this stuff, you run a little bit of ads, you'll get more traction than anyone else out there. And if you do like $20 a day, and you're spending $400 or something like that, 500, I mean, like you really blow out of the water. But like if you have a really good property, like you're like, I have a $2.4 million short-term rental that I want to be able to like really book, and I'm going to charge people X amount of money. It's me this ridiculous experience, right? Like I'll be really happy spending $500 a month when I'm advertising that, and I'll feel like no sweat about it.
Nice. So you're number 4 on the list after local guides and tips. What did you have next for us?
All right. So yeah, local guides and tips, and boom. Really my best favorite thing, which I already mentioned, professional photos. So yeah, so like my 5th thing really on here is professional photos. When you go into any of these photo kind of situations and you're working with a photographer, the best thing to do is to see how well they photograph the outside of the house. And that is for your advertisement going to be the most important thing. And if it's a drone shot, like a drone photo above the house looking out over it, that's like the better version of any of those shots. So most of the places I advertise in the Smokies, when they have those drone shots overlooking those giant mountains and everything like that, those are killer. People love those things. And then really the other thing though, is just get really comfortable, good looking chairs that overlook whatever the vista is. So that way people are like, they look like they're comfortable things when they see the photos. And I think that's another thing we had to do as well. For our Joshua Tree place, we worked with this woman whose name is Dawn Asher. She has this company called the Olive Jar, and she basically goes in and helps you design not only the actual aesthetics of the house and the interior, but like experiences. And so like little kind of like moments where you can have like a reading nook, and you have this little book that you can kind of pull out, and there's all these little things. There's a journal type thing. So there's all this kind of like reflection stuff that we did for Joshua Tree's place specifically, but also like even the actual like chairs and sitting areas. So those comfortable things, now that I have better pictures of more comfortable chairs on my outside, I'm going to feel better about using one of my exterior shots of the views of the desert for that. Otherwise, I'm like, it doesn't look like it's a comfortable chair to sit on some sort of like wood thing right out there. So that's another thing when you think about the pictures, what goes in the picture. And so if it's not aesthetically pleasing in terms of like the content of what is in there and the way in which the photo is taken, that might be a challenge as well. So this is why it's like professional photos and having like a professional designer, if you can afford that kind of thing, is killer. And if you can't afford that, watch a bunch of YouTube videos about how to stage a house and having those kind of things for when you want to make a real estate property sell. Those are the same kind of little tidbits of success for short-term rental stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. 5.
Number 5.
Love it, man.
So is that the quick little sheet right there? That's the total sheet?
Well, I mean, I have a bunch of stuff on here. It's like, are you ready to send traffic? It talks about developing the ad campaign. I can send you guys this. You can give it away to people too. So it's like, I was charging like $7 for this on my website, but gladly shoot you guys. You can just send it out to everyone for free. It also goes in there and it has like things like the region, where you want to target, the type of interests that you want to target, which I always choose vacation rental and holiday cottage. Those are the two demographics for targeting. Actually, like that's like the secret sauce kind of thing right there, where you want to really target people who are interested in vacationing. If well, actually, not all ad accounts have access to some of these things. Because I spend a lot of money on Facebook, I have access to potential traveler reach. It's kind of a beta thing Facebook is trying out, but it might be available for everyone else potentially. But people who might be traveling are getting my ads as part of that thing too. And some of my ad accounts have that, but a lot of them don't. And so if you at least can target by vacation rentals or holiday cottage, which you can, and that's in the detailed targeting under the audience section, which is underneath the map if you're looking at the actual ad thing. And if again, anyone has any questions on how to do this stuff, my 37-minute video on YouTube is pretty comprehensive. And I start talking about how to actually build the ads at like 4 minutes in or something like that. And so if you can handle me rambling about a bunch of ad science stuff for a little while, it's a little weird. But yeah, so like I have like the demographic restrictions that you really don't want to change. And then my findings are women who are 35 up are the ones who typically are the ones who respond. Men 35 up, it's like the 10%. I don't really break down the percentage of those because it's like, that's just what I found. But as I've run ads all over the country now, and I have like, I don't know, it's like 20 different short-term rentals now. I know when I first started talking to you guys, I had like 7. So now I have like a lot more I'm doing advertising for. So I have a lot more data. And it's all really correlating to mostly women are booking. So don't do any kind of, hateful things that women wouldn't like in your photos. And I'm sure that they'll also book your place as well. So, if it's super man cavey, might not necessarily go down. I don't know.
That's man, so much great advice, dude. And I know what people right now are listening are like, you know what, I've got a page of notes, but I'm just gonna call Mike, let him do it. I'm just gonna give him, because there's no way I can do all this stuff. And that's great, man, you're the expert.
And they can do it too. I mean, a lot of times it's like time, really. If they don't have the time for it, it's like it's a factor. But yeah, I mean, like, happy to invite them. My Facebook group, I think it's called Short-Term Rental Marketing Advice, powered by BTA. My company's Better Than Awesome. So I just like throw that in there. But I mean, really, it's funny as a not even my day job kind of job thing. Short-term rentals started taking over more of my world this summer. So it's like all of these things. It's a lot of opportunity to help people, and they can make money, and I'm making money, and everyone's really in this win-win-win kind of position. Especially when the person vacationing is like, I had the glorious vacation I've always wanted, and I absolutely needed this trip. And so you get all those kind of good joy feelings from it too. So yeah, I love it. I'm happy to help anyone too.
That is cool. That is cool. And where can people reach you personally?
So I'm, I don't know, just Mike Denman. I'm just Mike at betterthanawesome.com. My phone number, if you want that, is crazy, but I've got my Google voice number. You can text me, 720-336-1792. Ultimately with a lot of these things, if people find me on Facebook usually, so just facebook.com/mike.denman, DENMAN. That is the main way that most people for short-term rentals have been hitting me up. But yeah, I'm really accessible online. I'm kind of everywhere. So if you find me on Twitter, I'm Mike Devious. I'm also Mike Devious on Instagram, but my Better Than Awesome brand can be found there as well. And then yesterday I bought stradvertising.com. And so I'm probably going to have like, I know.
It's a good one, man. That's a good one.
was $12. I was like, okay.
What?
I was like, how does no one else have a book about this yet? No one else have this website yet. Like, this is a whole thing that's been around long enough.
That's
a
good
this is
snipe.
crazy. I was like, this is crazy, right? So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to do stradvertising.com. So that'll be like the brand right now. And it's pointed just to my Better Than Awesome page about short-term rentals. So like, if you go to stradvertising.com, I guess that's the quick and dirty answer as to how to find me. So, I mean, like, that's not even my brand, but it will be, I guess. And I'll make a whole new business about it. But I mean, that's a whole new thing.
Google, I just typed it in, man. That was a good find right there. STR advertising. That was a good find.
I originally was going to go with strads.com, but it was like $60. And I was like, someone else owns it and I have to go through a brokerage thing. I was like, that sounds exhausting. But then, luckily Google domains, $12. I'm down. So I bought it for like the next few years. I was like, yeah, this is a business I'm definitely going to run for a long time. So I'm going to be a short-term rental host for a long time. May as well just kind of go with it.
So you just threw one in there real quick. Google, what did you say? Google what? Sorry.
Google domains?
Domains. Google domains instead of GoDaddy. I mean, is that the
so I don't like GoDaddy in general. And when I ran like an SEO agency doing like a lot of web stuff, I really found that GoDaddy slowed people's websites down because they're all sharing a server that ultimately is a little challenging. And then the rates that they charge for some of the actual like URLs, like the website names, the domains, are like a third more expensive than just buying them from Google. So I just buy all my domains from Google, and it's like a nominal fee. And ultimately, it's not necessarily anything that I have to worry too much about.
And do they have like templates you can like start off a website right away with?
Google Business has like weird little business website pages. They're like Google My Business sites. I haven't really tried those for this thing, but you can map whatever domain that you've bought to that, or to your Facebook page, or to your Airbnb listing, or really wherever. And so ultimately, if you have a web link, web URL, you can put anywhere and anything up on it. But yeah, I think for like website stuff, ultimately, using the domain on my owner res direct booking site for my property domain might be ultimately what I ended up doing for that. But for like the overall, like, regular person out there, they're not really going to buy a domain for their listing unless they're doing a direct booking site. And if they have the direct booking site and they don't have it under their own domain, matching like what their property's name is, people don't recognize it's the same thing. And so you have to do a matching of the name and the brand places. And that's really all I have to worry about.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much, Mike Denman, for hopping on this show and blowing us away. I got 2 full pages of notes over here.
What?
So
You're now an ad scientist yourself, Steve.
Ad scientist, man. I need my smock.
That's good.
Well, thank you for hopping on. Again, great Fu Manchu you got going on there.
Appreciate it.
You've really blown us away, and we hopefully we can, a lot of our listeners will reach out to you, and we're going to reach out to you for sure.
I'm happy to talk, and I think that there's a lot of things that doing a little bit of advertising can help teach anyone, especially when it comes to the market research side of it, that no one really knew that can be a part of it. You can learn so much by doing a little bit of ad money.
Yeah, and I've already joined your Facebook group, so I'll be in touch with you for sure.
I'll go ahead and I'll add you.
Yeah, we need help sprucing up our Live Let Thrive YouTube page too. Maybe you can help with that.
Dude, I started working on YouTube when like a year after it came out, and it was one of those things that I've loved manipulating YouTube for business success and for people's reach for a long time. I have worked with so many YouTubers and so many cool big name YouTubers that it's really cool and humbling. But I think that like in the end of the day, when you've got millions and millions of views on YouTube, and I'm like, my name's not even on a lot of the stuff I've done. It's like crazy. But there's ways that you can make it so that way you get the large amount of people paying attention to your YouTube, and you guys got good stuff. So I think it'd be great. It'd be gangbusters place to optimize.
Sweet. We will get in touch with you shortly. Thanks, man, for hopping on. All the luck. And we'll see you soon.
Many thanks. Appreciate you guys. Have a great one. Thanks for having me on. Cheers.
See you.
Bye.
Hey, that was a really, really good episode. I had a whole bunch of questions. I already got my whole marching orders for next week. So I'm pretty happy about the Google thing. Or Facebook thing. I'm about to definitely. And it's crazy. I used to do Facebook ads, and I noticed I used to watch my views go all the way up on Airbnb. And I don't know why I got away from it. I forgot what happened, man. But I'm going to definitely hop back to it. I created a game plan for it while over here. I was typing up a game plan. So this is exciting.
Yeah, really eye-opening. A lot of things he said. I guess the number one thing that I got out of it is people they give up too early. That they run them for a little while. They're like, oh crap, nothing's happening. I'm wasting money and screw this. 5 days later they quit. Whereas I didn't know that the algorithm has to figure you out and figure out your ads and see, and then it'll start getting traction. And that's just when it's starting to get going, and people cut it off at that point, right?
Yep.
That's like, asking a girl out for a few dates and then not getting nothing. And then you're like, screw this. Maybe you're just needing to warm her up towards.
No, I don't know if you need a full-blown Urkel, man. Hey, after 1 or 2 no's, man, it might be time to move on, man. You might start catching stalker trucking.
Don't take her to Sizzler on day 1. That's all I'm saying, man. Starbucks, work your way up, McDonald's,
Oh, man.
all about the algorithm, man.
The algorithm. But yeah, man, this is a really good episode. I loved it because, I'm all about direct booking. So I was like, oh, snap. When he started talking about ads, I'm in there because I've been doing MailChimp stuff this whole week, setting up my chat bots, all that good stuff. So yeah, this is a really good episode, man. So yeah, man, Stevie Stacks, how's it been on your world before you take us out?
Been going good, man. Just busy like always, getting more properties up and running. Getting more I'm probably gonna buy another property pretty soon. So it's been going good, man. Yeah, winter, the slow season's coming a little bit, but so we're trying to figure out how to up our bookings for the slow season, and this comes at the perfect time, man. It's funny how this show works for us, in particular, because we were figuring out, okay, screw Airbnb, we're getting off this stupid platform, whatever. And then Mark Simpson hops on our show and tells us all about Boostly and direct bookings. Oh shit, let's get that. Okay, now what do we do? Now we want to push everybody to our direct booking site. Mike Denman hops on our show and says how to do that with marketing. And like, holy crap, this whole show is guiding our businesses, and that's pretty freaking cool.
The universe is aligning, man. We said fuck Airbnb, and the universe is with us. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. We love you, Airbnb. You done a lot for us. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Took a lot of money out of our pocket. But no, I'm joking. We love Airbnb, kind of. But yeah, man, this is really cool. That's what I love about this show, man. You always find something that's going to help your business, man. I love it. And I hope that our fans got a lot of value out of that, because that was a lot of value. I loved it.
All right. Where can people find us, Micah?
Man, you can find us at liveletthrive.com. Definitely check us out on Instagram, TikTok. I'm trying to post reels every day on the Instagram page and on TikTok. And then also you can find us, visit our link tree below us, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a rating on iTunes, an honest rating on iTunes. And remember, our masterclass is August 20th. All that stuff's our link tree. You can go and grab your tickets today. And we are having a huge ass meetup on August 23rd. We are already confirmed that 75 people will be there. It is going to be me, Steve, Mike. Fetty won't be there, but me, Steve, Mike, Julie George, Will Slickers, Sean Rackages, Noble, anyone, Amanda, basically damn near a whole bunch of people that's been on this podcast before. Going to be on
Johnny. Oh, is he in?
I don't know if he's going to be. He might be there. I don't know.
He might come up.
But yeah, it's huge. So definitely August 23rd. Definitely go grab that. I'm going to put the Eventbrite in the link tree so y'all can go click on that and check it out. It's going to be huge. Register for that. It is free. Don't want to miss it. August 23rd.
It shouldn't be free. It should be $500 a pop. But anyways,
we should be.
That's beside the point. Go to the masterclass and you get a free ticket to the meetup. There you go.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Peace. Live Let Thrive.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Live, Let, Thrive. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest in the world of Airbnb and all that entails. Bye-bye.